everybody, welcome to the studio. Today, I want to share with you how I frame my pastel paintings. I have several paintings to frame this weekend. Some are heading up to a gallery north of Seattle. One is heading up to an exhibition I was juried into up in the Tacoma area. And one is for a client that recently purchased a piece, which is the one that we are going to frame together. So let's head on over to my framing table and we'll get started. Okay, here we are at my framing table. My husband built me this big, beautiful table, and I use it for my framing. So when I am ready to frame, I put everything out ahead of time and I lay down a towel. This is the frame that I will often use. One of my higher-end galleries that I'm in suggested it, and I'll post links below to everything that I talk about here. It's got this beautiful fillet, and when I frame without a mat, I like to have a fillet that will basically kind of mat the frame, or mat the painting. It's just a lovely way to really showcase the work and separate it from the frame. So this particular frame has a little bit over 1/4 inch of a rabbet, which is just this space right here. It's important to me to have a little bit of additional space. Sometimes if you buy a frame at Michael's or just a ready-made frame like that, the rabbet can be very shallow. And that can sometimes cause some issues when you're framing. So try to get frames that have a bit of a deeper rabbet. For this particular piece, I am framing this painting that was not mounted, and we've talked about mounting. So what I did was I T-hinged it to a piece of archival foam core board. Normally, I could just pop this piece in if it was mounted, and that's why I like to mount so much. But since it wasn't mounted, that's what I did. It works just fine. T-hinging is simply taking a piece of archival linen tape and taping it to the back of the painting, and then taking another piece of tape and taping it to the back of the foam core. So this is what I use. It's a self-adhesive linen hinging tape, and I'll post a link below. Okay, so now I'll put in my glass. I buy my glass actually at Michael's, and I have found it to be very affordable there. Some people have told me that they have not found that that's the case. I guess I've gotten lucky at the Michael's here in my area. So I just carefully lay that in. The next thing I'm going to do is I like to use spacers. For quite a while, I was actually framing in the passe-partout method. And that just means that you're making basically a pastel sandwich with your painting. So you would take your painting and lay it directly against the glass, and then you would tape it with what I would use was framer's tape, with your painting in the middle and your foam core on the back. And then you would simply take the entire package in and out and frame it that way. There's nothing wrong with framing that way, but my personal preference has really become using spacers. The main reason is that I can then much more easily reuse my glass. And there is some contention whether long-term framing in the passe-partout method is a good idea. So for all those reasons, I have decided that I prefer using the spacers. Now, if I was to frame this piece with a mat, the only thing that I would do differently is I would take some of my Crescent perfect mount board that I have shown you guys that I use for mounting. This is a very thin 1/16 of an inch piece. I would cut strips of this and paste them basically onto the back of the mat board. And that will create a little bit of a space in between the painting and the mat, so that the dust, any dust that's going to fall, will fall not onto your mat, but down underneath it. And then I would just take my foam core board with my painting and put it behind the mat with the spacers on it. Okay, So let's get started. I'm not going to walk you through the entire process, but I will show you how I put in the spacers, and then we'll fast forward. I have to wear my glasses for this. So these are the spacers that I use, and I buy these in a big blue tube from Frame Tech. I buy the 1/16 of an inch clear spacers. I find that they work best for me. Now I'll take my garden shears that my husband claims I stole from him. I think they're mine. And I will simply measure. I'll take this spacer, I'll measure it against the edge of the rabbit and find where it ends there. And I will clip it off with my shears. And sometimes what can be really helpful is if your glass is moving around just a little bit, if it's not perfectly sized, I will be sure to get my spacer right up to the edge of the rabbit. Because once you take the sticky stuff off and you basically glue it to your glass, that's going to stop the glass from moving around. So I'm going to go ahead and put these in. I'll put the first one in, and then I will forward the video so that you don't just watch me do repetitive stuff. But this will just carefully get laid down. And okay, so this happens sometimes. I was off just a little bit. So all I'm going to do is simply take my my garden shears and just clip the tiniest bit and lay it in. And there it is. Let's throw it out. Okay, I'm going to finish up with the spacers, and we'll be back to put the painting in, and I'll show you how I finish it off. Okay, all my spacers are in, and I am ready to pop my painting in. I only T-hinge the top of the painting. I like to leave the bottom of it free so that air is allowed, moisture and air can cause shrinkage or can make the painting fibers in the backing move around, and we don't want the painting constricted. So I like to leave that bottom part open and free flowing. So now I'm slightly holding the edges, and I'm going to just push it in there, and I'm gonna now take it, hold it on the back, and look at it, see how it looks. And I think it looks great. There's no foam core showing, there's no obvious dust on the glass. So we are ready to go. So now I'm going to take my Logan Dual Driver Elite point driver, and I'm simply going to, I bought this on Amazon. I'll link it for you below. I don't feel that, oh, what happened there? That one didn't come all the way out. That's odd. Let's try it again and see what happens. Uh-oh, I got jammed. For the first time ever, I'm jammed. I had a small technical difficulty with my point driver. For the first time ever, point got jammed, but it's fine. I would say I fixed it, but my handy cameraman / husband just pulled it out with pliers. So, okay. Now I'm just simply going to line up the edge of the point driver and press slightly against the edge of the rabbit so that it goes in right along the edge. And on a smaller piece like this, I really don't feel the need to do more than 2 per side. I like to use a dust cover. I think that it's important to keep bugs out, and also it's just aesthetically more pleasing. So I am going to use this butcher paper. I just bought this on Amazon, And because this frame has such a thin edge here, I'm actually going to, I'm going to put the butcher paper and my dust cover inside. And then I will put my D-rings for hanging on the inside as well. It really depends on the type of frame that you're using, you know, to decide where you want to put your dust cover. But it's best practice for me to put mine on the inside of this. So I will use double-sided tape. And all that I'm going to do is take it. This is a new roll. Let's see if I can get this going. So you just take it like this. I'm going to cut this little edge off. There we go. And I lay it down against, right against the edge of where the rabbit begins. Where's my scissors? Oh, here we go. Scissors are easier than kitchen shears for this stage. So I'm going to go around, I'll basically take two sides and pull those off. That's just my personal preference before I do the other two sides. So you just simply pull this tape off. Oh, that one's, I'm going to start from the other side. Sometimes, of course, especially on video, things can give you a little bit of trouble, but usually there's no problem. Okay, so I've got my sticky double-sided tape down. And now I'm going to cut off a piece of my butcher paper and lay it down on my double-sided tape to create a dust cover. The only thing that I really want to be careful about at this stage is to not leave the butcher paper on for too long before trimming it. I have noticed that at least with the double-sided tape that I use, it can tend to really stick and make it more difficult to come off if you wait too long to use what I'm going to show you in just a minute, your razor trimming this. So I wouldn't do this step and then go walk away for an hour. So I'm going to simply lay this down on the inside, kind of be careful to flatten it out, use my hand. And now it's in there well, it's stuck. So now the way that I go about this, and again, it's going to be a little bit different depending on the frame that you're using, but for me, this method works really well. I'm going to take my ruler, and I can feel where the edge of the rabbit is, and I'm going to grab my mechanical pencil, and I'm just going to take, say, 1/2 inch and make a little mark on the outside of where I feel that rabbit is, and make some marks here because that's where I'm going to shave off the excess dust cover. Okay, so need glasses again for this. I'll just use the edge of the frame to line this up so that I have a straight line. Okay, so I've got a nice straight line, and I'm simply going to now use my, what is this thing called? Oh, my razor knife. My handy husband in the background is helping me out here. I shouldn't be allowed to use these types of things probably with how much I injure myself. But anyway, this is what we're going to do. I'm just going to simply and carefully cut down this line that I've created. I use a snap-off razor so that I can easily just snap this off when it gets old. They get old pretty quickly when I'm cutting through sanded paper for, you know, mounting boards and things like that. Now, I'll just simply pull this back. A little bit of the tape comes off with it, which is fine. And now I have a nice straight edge here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for the rest of the piece, and I'll be back in a minute. Okay, I've gotten my dust cover on, and I'm happy with it. So it's time to put in our D-rings and get this guy hung. So the first thing I'll do is make sure that I've got it the right way. And then I will take my ruler, and I want to measure 1/3 of the way down from the entire length of the frame. Now, let me grab my other ruler here. This is 18 inches. So I'm going to make a mark 6 inches down and 1/2 inch over from the edge of the rabbet. So I'll come down 6 inches. And then I'll just measure out. And there's no hard and fast rule on where I'm measuring out from the rabbet, but it is standard practice to put your wire 1/3 of the way down the length of your painting. Okay. So I just buy these D-rings on Amazon. These hold up to 25 pounds, so I feel fine using these for my smaller pieces. For larger pieces, I use larger D-rings. I've framed many paintings with these, and it's not been a problem. For this particular frame, I do request that they put a piece of solid wood on the inside. And the way that if you are interested in ordering from this company, which is San Diego Frame, which is where I buy my frames, you just simply put a V in front of the number of the frame that you want, and then they'll put the solid wood in there for you. I do that because I don't want to put these screws into particle board. It's just not, it wouldn't hold as well. And I do want to just say that with San Diego Frame, you don't have to have a wholesale license to order from them. So it's really wonderful. I think there's only one state that you do have to have that license. And so you'd want to call them. But you call them, they'll set you up with a free account. And the only thing is that you have to make a minimum purchase of $100 every time you place an order. And it takes about a month to get your frames. So those are the only drawbacks. But these frames are quite affordable, comparatively speaking, when you look at some of the other frames on the market. And for example, I know that they supply, San Diego Frame supplies a lot of their frames to King of Frame. And obviously, I'm not getting paid to tell you guys about this. I just know from experience and having purchased from both of those companies, King of Frame is quite popular amongst artists, and this frame is almost twice the cost at King of Frame when you can buy it at San Diego Frame for much less. I think that this 9x12 frame cost me around $50. But I can't be sure of that. I purchased a lot of different sizes. So you'd have to go in and log in to look at your account to be able to see the pricing. You can't just see the pricing browsing their site. Okay, so one thing that I forgot to grab is my wire. So I'm going to go grab my wire. I simply buy my wire on Amazon as well. And what I will do is basically just take enough, I want enough space on either side of my D-rings to be able to make, to be able to tie them up properly. So I'll look at that. I'll take my kitchen shears. I'll just take about, I don't know, 3 inches extra on each side, which is probably more than I need, but I'd rather have plenty of wire than not enough. And now we'll definitely be speeding up the video because you don't want to watch me screwing in D-rings. So that's what I'm going to do here. See you in a sec. Okay, got to use a little bit of elbow grease for that part. So I'm almost there. It is now time to put on our wire. So this wire, I think, holds up to 50 pounds, 25 pounds. If you get a very heavy wire, it does become more difficult, to do this part, but it's not that big of a deal either way. So I start by simply pushing over the wire here on one of the D-rings, the D-ring I'm not working on, so that it will hold. And this is quite a lot. I really didn't need even this much. So I'm going to trim off just a little bit. Make sure I've got enough on that side, which I do. You want your wire to be quite taut. It's important for that. It just will hang much better. So what I do is I simply go around the back of the wire once and then back up through. Pull it tight. And then I'm simply going to twist the wire around itself and pull it down. Come over to the other side. Be sure that it's pulled as taut as I can get it, because inevitably a little bit of wire is going to get a little bit looser as you're tying your knot. Trim off any excess. And we have a framed painting. So that's how I do it. I hope this was helpful. I'm not exactly a technical type of person, so I hope that I explained that well. If you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. You can send me a private message. You can post a comment on this post, and I'm happy to answer any additional questions you have about framing. So I hope you learned something, and I'll be back next week with a video demonstration. I'll see you soon.